Whereas these experiences can also be found online on patient forum discussions, where a lot of patients already share with each other which side effects they are experiencing. And the advantage of this is also that it's very timely, it's very fast, far faster than conducting a whole study. So that is the aim of our project. And we could not work on this project without GIS Support International, who we collaborate with in order to get access to the Facebook forum that they have for GIST patients. And special credits to Gerard for arranging this collaboration. So these forums are, you might have been on one of these forums, and these forums tend to be quite huge. There's hundreds of thousands of posts on them, ranging from for this particular one, from 2009 until now. And there's a lot of valuable information on there. But our challenge and our goal is to extract just the information about the side effects. So what I've been doing is I've been working on using artificial intelligence to do so. And essentially that means that I'm teaching the computer to recognize whenever someone is talking about a drug, such as Gleevec, you can see here in pink, or a side effect, such as can't fall asleep, here in blue. So after we've managed to do that, we still also need to teach the computer to understand what's the drug they're talking about. So in this case, to understand that Gleevec is actually the same thing as imatinib, and it's not some different drug, but it's just another word for the same thing. And this is even more challenging for side effects, because there is such a large variety in ways in which people can describe the side effect that they're experiencing. For instance, for headache, you might say, well, I have a headache. Or you might say, my head is bursting. Or you might say, it's like someone is jamming a knife in my eye, or like someone is whacking a hammer on my head. There are so many different ways of describing the same thing. And so we've also worked on teaching a computer to understand that these are in fact all the same thing. In this example, insomnia, but in the other example, of course, headache. All right, so we've done this. So now we have from the forum all the drugs that people mention and the side effects that they mentioned that they get because of them. So I'm going to show you now some of the different things that you could do with this data. One thing is, for instance, we could start looking over time. When are people reporting side effects? Here in this graph, you can see that for ripretinib, which is one of the newly approved drugs. You can see that every time they start with a phase 3 trial, there's a peak in how many side effects are being reported. But maybe even more interesting is you can see that when the FDA approval went through, you can see an even larger peak in the amount of side effects people are reporting, probably simply because more people are now able to use the drug. Right? Something else that we can do with this data is look at which side effects are being reported. Here you can see a graph of the 20 most prevalent side effects for avapritinib, formerly Blue 285. And you see here the top 5 are amnesia, nausea, fatigue, loss of hair, and altered bowel function, which is an umbrella term for things such as diarrhea and constipation. So these side effects that we find here might not be that surprising to you, because they were already found in the clinical trial. However, looking at a forum where we don't ask any questions, we simply look what are people reporting, can give us a better idea of which side effects are a priority for patients, which one really impact their quality of life. Assuming that people will talk more about the things that impact their life more. Something else that we can do, which relates to the session, is look at long-term side effects. Which side effects do people only start mentioning after so many years? Here I show the top 20 that we found for imatinib, and you can see that it is quite in line with what Hans was mentioning. There's a lot of side effects relating to the eyes, such as intraocular hemorrhage, but also just a blurry vision, a heavy feeling in the eyelids. Even though this is not a clinical trial, we cannot measure whether people have actually been taking a drug for 5 years. We can, however, look at the forum and say, okay, which things have not been mentioned earlier and only being mentioned now? So it gives a sort of signal where maybe we should be looking. Well, finally, something that we still want to do is compare what we found to the registration trials. Fortunately, I don't have a graph to show you yet, but I can give you a little bit of a sneak preview that we are seeing for the newly approved medications, so avapritinib, ripretinib. We see that the side effects mentioned in the forum largely overlap with what we know from the clinical trial. Well, this makes sense because probably the same people were in the clinical trial and being carefully monitored for side effects as were on the forum talking about their side effects. We expect a lot more promise for medications such as imatinib that have been running for decades and have not been monitoring all patients. And we see there that there is a far larger variety in the different side effects people are reporting than were reported in the clinical trial. All right. Well, as Dita already hinted at, doesn't stop there. We also want to compare what we found with a survey done amongst Dutch GIST patients to get a better understanding of what we are seeing here and how these different methods could complement each other to have a better overall perspective of what side effects people are experiencing. Something else that I will be working on is going beyond side effects, looking what are people advising each other on these forums to do about the side effects. Just like Hans was already talking about, people might advise each other to use magnesium against muscle cramps. This is the kind of advice we're looking for. And for patients themselves, it's almost a full-time job to keep up with the forum and look back over the last 10 years to see what kind of people, or what kind of advice people have been giving. So we want to develop something that could automatically extract that and provide an overview. The last thing we want to look at is how representative is this forum? Because of course, not everybody is online. So in order to be able to interpret our results better, we want to get an understanding of who is and who isn't posting on these patient forums. Well, that was an overview of the work I've been doing. Thank you for listening. I hope I've gotten you excited about my project, and I'm happy to answer any questions.